What do you do at PagerDuty and what is PagerDuty all about?
So, we are the global leader in digital operations management, with over half of the Fortune 500. They rely on us as the essential infrastructure for their enterprises.
B2B business is very slow moving. The way things operate on the product and the sales side are very different. How it affected your software development cycle? Is that something you learned also?
When we were just a 10-person company, the customer service rep and the sales rep is actually making a call next desk, and they're trying to talk to the customer while closing a deal. And we actually had this thing called as ABC, always be closing, written in there. And right below that, I had my engineering drawings there as well.
Engineering leader. I know that these things, sales and marketing guys, they enjoy a lot. The money is rolling in, but engineering essentially dealing with the problems of scale. What was that phase like?
This doesn't happen in a linear way. I'm sitting in the code, or I don't know every single design documents or reviews or something like that. Unlocking that from how I can immediately talk to somebody and know every single detail versus really managing through layers was one of my periods of growth and change, if you will.
Quoted for saying that. Why don't you explain to the audience what you mean by that when you use that phrase at PagerDuty?
A marketing team send out a public, a press release that, hey, this is the feature that is coming along, so that they can educate our customers. But in order to do this, you need to start executing that at certain time intervals so that you can do this in a coordinated manner. So that's where the slippages happen. It was just a simple wordplay, like how do you go from slipping to shipping?
Hello and welcome to a fantastic episode of Pitch Cafe podcast. We bring leaders from the startup, venture, and corporate world who simplify the technology landscape for you. Today we have with us a B2B SaaS leader who deals in depth with technology. We are all in a panic mode with AI advancements overriding our capacity to think. Sound engineers are acting as stepping stones amidst stumbling boulders. Today, we have with us a similar leader who's transforming this space in the B2B SaaS domain. We have Senior Director of Engineering from PagerDuty, Manu Gurudatha, who's here to talk all about his fantastic ride in the engineering, innovation, and B2B SaaS landscape. Manu, welcome to Pitch Cafe podcast.
Vidya, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Manu, you've been a mentor to me on so many topics, including the very hot and trending enterprise and cybersecurity domain many times in the past. So, today I want to ask you about your journey, which has got you to this point where you're in a position to lead an organization as Senior Director of Engineering and software. So, tell us, what do you do at PagerDuty and what is PagerDuty all about?
PagerDuty Operations Cloud is a platform of action for the modern enterprise. So the Operation Cloud combines AI ops, automation, customer service operations, and incident management with powerful AI assistants to create flexible, easy to use platform designed for mission critical, time sensitive, and high impact work across IT, DevOps, security, and many other business teams across the enterprise. So we are the global leader in digital operations management, with over half of the Fortune 500 and nearly 70% of the Fortune 100 companies actually rely on us as the essential infrastructure for their enterprises. So within PagerDuty, I run engineering for what we call as operations cloud applications, which are basically the customer facing products, such as the AI ops, incident management, customer service operations, and that includes status pages and integrations as well.
So this is amazing. So you're walking the line of innovation, where AI meets operations in the software inside a
Mhm.
company. But then this is like the cutting edge of transformation. Everything is transforming in this space, especially because
Exactly.
you're managing the cloud aspect of it. So, I do want to get deeper into this. Before this, I've heard a lot about your leadership skills, your problem solving skills, but I know it didn't come easy. You had to walk a journey to get to where you are. So let's start with the beginning of your
Sure.
career. Here you are a fresh grad, and your first stint was at Demandforce, and you were thrown into this early founding engineer role. And what were some of the learnings? What were some of the aha moments? And how was it being thrown at the deep end when you just started your career?
Yeah, so at Demandforce was my first opportunity to see the 0 to 1 leap, as we say, in the Silicon Valley, right? So one of the key things that I saw, especially from a product development and scale perspective, is the key difference between a B2B business and a B2C business and how they kind of grow. And they have, there are similarities and differences. So B2B, whereas typically linear, whereas like B2C is like there's a hockey stick like growth. So understanding
Yeah.
this subtle difference helped me to identify what is really the core tenet that I need to apply as an engineer in a fast growing startup. And that was basically to be scrappy and be fast. And that kind of a mentality is far more important than writing the perfect code or the most beautiful design and things like that. So I think that was my very early learnings on how to actually make higher impact in especially in the startup, high growing startups and stuff like that.
Wonderful. Here you are working as an engineer, but you're dealing with business side of it. A B2B business is very slow moving. The way things operate on the product and the sales side are
Mhm.
very different. Did you get to experience that whole side of the startup where you see how deal cycles are so long drawn in B2B and how it affected your software development cycle? Is that something you
Yeah,
learned also?
exactly. And I remember very vividly, like when we were just a 10-person company, and the customer service rep and the sales rep is actually making a call next desk, and they're trying to talk to the customer while closing a deal. And we actually had this thing called as ABC, always be closing, written in the and right below that, I had my engineering drawings there as well. So it's a very exciting space in that sense that. You know where the money is coming from, what the customers are looking for, and how can we constantly adapt where the need is.
Wonderful. And moving on to place where you built your
Mhm.
experience, this was a company called Ensighten. There's this story you talk about fixing a delayed product at Ensighten. How did that work? I mean, did you feel like you landed in this company, they gave you this product which everybody said, oh man, it's not going to work, and you flipped the script and made it successful. So, what did you do at Ensighten? What was your proud moment at Ensighten?
Yeah, so this was actually, it was interesting that Ensighten already had existing customers and it was already a Series A company when I joined. So this was effectively a 1 to 10 scenario for me, where I had to lead our core product through its high growth phases even when we went from Series A to B to C. So essentially the situation was like there was when I joined there was already hundreds of customers, tens of engineers, and we were looking to grow that at a very high pace. So when you're trying to like go from 0 to 1, the things that apply, they need to be adapted when you kind of like go from 1 to 10, if you will. So what essentially got the same things to one state, we had to like introduce a few more new processes, but introducing processes or even minor structures will essentially slow a system that is already running at a very high pace, right? But slowing things down in order to go faster and scale more is the key aspect that I was able to realize then. And that's where, how can I identify different parallel work streams and work with different, stakeholders, because now it's a growing business as opposed to taking something from nothing to market, right? So that approach really helped us to work with the team, see the vision forward, see a path forward, all the way from like architecture reliability and infrastructure shifts to how do we innovate in our core product and how do we handle the existing customers and lead them through the change. So this introducing some of these necessary structures really helped us scale to the next level,
Yeah, this is like engineering of processes in
essentially.
addition to engineering the product, so that your turnaround times keep getting
Yep,
shorter, and your any roadblocks you have figured out a way to fix it, and you pace up. So the next phase is you're scaling like
exactly.
crazy. So it looks like you have architected your career to go from 0 to 1, 1 to 10. So moving on to your next company, obviously this is like a 10x, 100x company. You did Salesforce, and you took three roles at Salesforce. So you have three different lifetimes you've spent at Salesforce. So tell us about all the roles you were able to accomplish at Salesforce, and what it taught you as a B2B SaaS leader.
Yeah, my first stint at Salesforce was as an engineer, where I grew from, right after Demandforce, I jumped into Salesforce and kind of learned the ropes of, scalable software systems there. I did that
Yeah.
for about 5 years, and then, moved back to Insighten and came back to Salesforce. And this time, I actually started leading a few teams at Service Cloud, which was one of the hottest and fastest growing organizations within Salesforce at that point. And after a couple of years, I had the great opportunity to actually take over one of our newer products called Health Cloud. This was essentially CRM application for like, initially it was just for the healthcare providers, but then we expanded that to like payers and medical devices and life sciences as well. So this essentially, over the 5 years that I was running Health Cloud, it pretty much, like beat all kinds of metrics in all kinds of dimensions, whether it is like the number of customers or, people, stakeholders, the product depth and breadth. So that was one of the key aspect that shaped my leadership journey, if you will. So that's kind of my Salesforce journey end to end.
So wonderful. So now you wrapped your head around healthcare, which is, I would call it a plum project, because healthcare and software operations and B2B SaaS, it's a thriving market to
Hmm.
be in. And of course, what was it like moving from 1 to 10 to a company 10 to 100x? What was it like? What were some of the challenges you faced as a engineering leader? I know that these things, sales and marketing guys, they enjoy a lot, the money is rolling in, but engineering, essentially you're dealing with the problems of
Right.
scale at the back end. So what was that phase
Yeah,
like?
so I think one of the key unlocks for me, specifically, as an engineer earlier, and then as a, manager that managed a few teams, I was always connected, very closely connected with what was happening. And during the high, when, I started leading a couple of teams, it was more at like, okay, I knew what was still happening in the code, but I was not actively coding on a day-to-day basis because my primary role shifted to helping the teams and growing our team members and engineers. So that was still very easy. I mean, relatively easy speaking, because I knew what was happening. I had the context, and I was able to navigate the different changes and help my team as well grow along with me. But at a certain point during my health cloud journey, where I had to essentially reinvent, because we were growing in a couple of different geolocations as well. So now you had a whole new dimension of different people, different cultures, and different time zones, and essentially, like, and while scaling the whole product and the business, while we also onboard people, and then essentially get into a well-oiled state, right? So
Yeah.
this doesn't happen in a linear way, because now I'm no longer close to the details. I'm no longer sitting in the code, or I don't know every single design documents or reviews or something like that. So unlocking that from how I can immediately talk to somebody and know every single detail versus really managing through layers was one of my periods of growth and change, if you will. So that was recognizing that and having a good support system and good mentorship there is, I think, is a crucial thing, because the organization still is running nimble and fast. And how do you essentially bring everybody along with that journey, like every engineer, every team member along with that journey while the business is running fast and turning direction? That is the key to like essentially making things successful. So I learned that the harder way through this journey.
This is a really valuable piece of advice. I hear lots of CEOs, sharing this advice. I think this is the secret sauce to building great companies. Now, on that note, of course, you're here at PagerDuty, and when I was researching about you, I heard this phrase, "slipping to shipping," and you are quoted for saying that all the time. So why don't you explain to the audience what you mean by that when you use that phrase at
Yeah.
PagerDuty?
How do we go from autonomous teams that are actually having a high DevOps mindset, and they have different individual targets, to like aligning them towards a new goal, which is like to expand the business from incident response to incident management, and whatever that gaps that requires from a end-to-end customer flow. So that involved a lot of changes from a lot of the teams, which means now the teams that are used to running autonomously and in their charters, we now have to figure out a way to like also align them towards a unified goal. Whenever you try to do
Yeah,
something like this, invariably, estimations, that's always a hard skill for at every organization. And but the problem is, when you want to move big mountains like this, you also want to bring the customer stakeholders like the sales and marketing teams and along and things like that. So that is where predictability is super important, because if you want to have a marketing team send out a public a press release that, hey, this is the feature that is coming along, so that they can, like the go to market teams can actually educate our customers and prep them and educate them to actually go through this as well. But in order to do this, you need to start executing that at certain time intervals, so that you can kind of do this in a coordinated manner. So that's where the slippages happen, because now suddenly like everyone needs to coordinate and like run to a same rhythm. And that's where some of the slippages happen. How do we do that into shipping? It was just a simple word
yeah,
play. Like, how do you go from slipping to
yeah.
shipping?
No, no.
That
Yeah, I mean, you need to change a lot of things. So you need to change how you build the
Yeah,
ship, basically. Rethink it. You're a musician. I can't help but remember you've learned how to fit into the orchestra
yeah,
all the time. That's what you do. So you do that outside. You do it here
exactly.
also. Wonderful. On that note now of not missing a beat, let's talk about your leadership lessons, on building teams, and everybody, should be aligned to the same goal. You kept repeating it. I can't help but bring up that AI has gotten into every workflow in the organization, so much so that agents are replacing employees. So how does Manu think about leadership teams and such during these transformational
Yeah.
phases?
Yeah, I think that's a very great question, Vida. So one of the key things, my favorite quotes is by John Doerr. It's ideas are easy, execution is everything, and it takes a great team to win. I think I very strongly believe in that. And whether it is people, which is like my teams, my peers, executives, or customers, or a whole other dimension of like taking large initiatives and things like that, having a plan to bring ideas into execution through bringing all the teams and people together, that is kind of my way of doing things. So this is where words are necessary. What we need, what we are going to do, plans, all these things are necessary, but they're also not sufficient. So I think I try to build trust by not just saying what we are going to do, but also do what we said we will do. That consistent action is extremely important. So from that perspective, like there's a lot of changes happening. There will be a lot more changes that will continue to be happening as well. My tactic would be like always keep adding value. Knowledge is great, but action is better.
There's one more thing I'll just bring it along the way. John Doerr says measure what matters. So I never understood how you can measure human beings. You know, on a good day they are 10x productive. On a bad day they can't even get a simple thing you told them. You have to say it 10 times. So how do you work with this measure what matters?
I'm not going to try to measure people because that's
It's not
yeah,
possible.
that's a different thing altogether. But what I do focus on is continuous improvement. That to me is the name of this game. And from that perspective, you cannot improve what you don't measure. Because once you measure and have a baseline, then you can really figure out, okay, how can I do this one small thing better? And when you get into that rhythm, then progress will happen as a byproduct of that, right? So setting up that data-driven culture and establishing that transparency and a sense of urgency, these are for me like prerequisites before we can start, thinking about metrics. And then like I also my other philosophy is like measure what matters, as you just said, versus measuring things that there are a lot of vanity metrics, right? So this is a little bit of choosing what to measure and what not to measure. Is as much an art as it is science. So I think like again, thinking back from everybody's perspective, right? Everybody that is involved in this journey, everyone likes to like get things done. I even go back to like my own checklist. Like there is a certain satisfaction in like taking things off every day or every week or so on, right? So having a structure that gives these micro wins to everybody is a good way to like keep the drumbeat going, if you will. I'm now sticking to a lot of the musical analogies here. So yeah, so that's one part. And then also focus away from activity metrics, but shift towards more outcome-based metrics. So that's, there are some structures that can help. We can all, to measure some of these things. So those in a way how I try to think about it.
Yeah, you know, I come from the self-help coaching world where we coach people, and then it's so easy to measure it for
Yeah,
one person. In the collective, an activity metric is so gray. You know,
yeah,
delving into it and then making sense out of it, calling out the metrics that are not working. In fact, even for KPIs also, these are you have to constantly rethink which KPIs to focus on. The
correct.
business guys and the product metrics, right? Even those are some things you need to
Absolutely. Yeah,
consider. That being said, yeah, you know, I used to work for a very renowned Stanford professor, and he said perfection is the enemy of good enough. Okay, and you told me in the beginning of your journey at Demandforce, you realized that if you try to build a perfect product, you can't run
correct.
fast enough. You got to deploy first and then run fast and improvise it. So tell me, how do you define good, or what do you call as a definition of success, so that it doesn't come in
Yeah,
the way, the perfection doesn't come in the way? How, as an engineer, because you're the buck stops at you, no matter what everybody else does, sales or marketing, if you are not able to create a good product, or if the teams are not happy, the company will fail. So how do you walk
yeah,
that line?
yeah. So I think, at a meta level, there is the team health metrics, there is operational health, there is product health, there is engineering health. We can kind of go into those individual ones. But one,
So you do review all of them. It's a part of your routine to look at everything.
at some periodic times, right? Like that way you kind of make sure that it is not just one thing that is going to lead to positive outcomes. It is a combination of all of these things. But I think if we just were to take an example, during the normal flow of software development, one of the key things that I try to look at is the end-to-end flow metrics, if you will, from the start of an idea to when the outcome is achieved. So this, if you were to like call this as lead time to value, you want that to be as quick as possible, and as iterative and incremental as possible. Because then what you're allowing yourself to do is first try to see where the bottlenecks are, all the way from idea to, like, say prototype to actual implementation to, get into the hands of customers, and then feed, take their feedback and loop that back into refining that. That really helps us to identify what our V1 is going to look like, and then, like, keep on improving on that. Measuring this can be all the way from, like, just during the development side, it could be the Dora metrics, it could be a lot more on the deployment or the planning side of things. So, but this to me is like looking at the overall end to end will help me understand where the bottlenecks in the systems are. So, and then we can go in.
So what is yeah, yeah, what is good? What do you define as good, and what can you live with? Look,
Yeah,
for me, I'm the content world, right? I'm doing 2 to 3 video publications every week, and I do see there are some issues,
yeah,
small issues, and then if I stop at fixing one issue, the two other videos will not go
exactly.
out.
Yeah,
So I know where to live with some
yeah,
mistakes. If the blue is not matching the green, it's fine, let
yeah,
it
yeah,
go, it's fine, it's not going to
yeah,
stop the show. So how do you make that
yeah.
call,
So
like what is totally good and
that is
not
a
good?
great question. So I'll give a little bit of context and why this B2B thing again matters here, right? So we can ship a lot of value, but it also, the success of what we ship is also governed by our customers' ability to take in changes. Because what happens in B2B world is the user is many times different than the admin, and who's different than the buyer of the system. When you have like multiple personas acting on a certain thing, you want to be able to like show value in as discrete ways as possible, but that should be decoupled from how you ship and how you manage the change. So for me, I think if you think about it, like at least some sizable big rock every quarter from each team gives them, one, gives the team a sense of accomplishment because you've moved the needle in a meaningful way, and it also is a good enough way for the customers to not be overwhelmed by constant changes. Because again, think about
Yeah.
in the enterprise space, like somebody is there to actually enable the flags and say, hey, this feature is available for all my teams, and there'll be some onboarding materials that they'll have to, like, change and things like that. And then the users will be on a critical flow, they'll have to like adapt to the changes that we are doing. So being very mindful of how we actually handle that customer experience for different personas, while we still are extremely agile and fast in how we move. That is the balance. So that's why I don't want to overburden ourselves with too many metrics to measure, but like think about some
Yeah.
of these higher order metrics to measure.
How do you define value? When do you know a customer got value? Do they come and tell you, or are you monitoring the way they use your product, and you assume and you read from
Yeah,
that?
so it totally depends on the context that we're trying to do. So, for example, well, we just launched a huge revamp of our pricing and packaging structure for about 80% of our paid customer base last month. And there we have identified, like, here are the three key functionalities or capabilities. Everybody, all of our customer base will now get it. So measuring the adoption of those is one way that we are tracking it. But it could be in a different feature. It could be just the amount of eyeballs on that, or amount of new records created, or things like that. And there's also more like aggregated metrics, like customer cohorts and things like that that we can track as well.
Yeah, and what about the analysts? What do they say about PagerDuty, and how does that impact your brand value? Or as an engineering or B2B SaaS leader, do you consider the analysts' opinions when you go through your revamp
Yeah,
cycles?
it happens at various levels, right? So I'm not the one that talks about the more of the public analysts and stuff, like financial analysts and stuff like that. But we do look at where the market trend is going, and we try to adapt. And this is where preparing for evolution is far more important than hitting a specific goal or a feature or a metric, because that way we can constantly evolve where the need is.
So, Manu, I know we've reached the end of the hour. The busy person that you are, the gazillion things you're handling. Thank you so much for spending the last hour with me. Before letting you go, I want to dig deep on what is that one philosophy you want to share with aspiring B2B SaaS leaders. This is the a prime location for career aspirants in software. This is where you want to be if you're in Silicon Valley. So, what are some of your core philosophies that have driven you to be the leader you are?
As a leader, know what is your primary purpose in your organization. I think, especially all leaders, you are the multipliers. You are the culture carriers. You have to play mentor coach. You have to you are the key critical person, especially during change of times of change, because you are the one who is navigating the change, but also helping and contextualizing the change for every single person on your team. So approach these different situations with a how can we mindset, and also never be afraid of doing the right thing for your customers and your teams. So I think in short, if I were to summarize that, I think always be shipping and do the right thing by your customers and your teams. Success will follow.
No, thank you so much, Manu. Everything you said is just worth memorizing and implementing. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I wish you come back and share your nuggets of wisdom with us once again.
Thank you
Thank
for
you so
giving me the
much.
opportunity.